Everyone has dreams and desires for making their lives better. All of us want more money, better relationships, and greater fulfillment. All of us want to be happier, healthier, and in better shape physically. But very few are willing to take the next step and do something about it. Are you ready for positive change in your life? Are you ready to join the few who have made their lives better?
Hello, I'm Paul Kahn, and I want to thank you for visiting our website.
Let's assume you have decided to take action and do something about your situation. One of the best ways to get started is by remembering some of the things you have already done to bring your life to where it is today. This is the foundation upon which we will start building your future. Success does not take place in a vacuum. Just as there is a past, a present, and a future, there is also a beginning, a middle, and an end. For real change, happiness, and personal growth to take place, we need to know who we are, where we are, and what is most important to us.
Will Rogers said, even if you are on the right track, if you just sit there, you'll get run over. This quote and metaphor has special meaning for me. I had a friend who lost his life some 30 years ago when his car was hit by a train after it had gotten stuck on a railroad track. Evidently, he'd been trying to get it off the tracks when a train came around the corner. He panicked and he froze and he lost his life right there. We were all devastated, especially his family. I have another friend who had a similar thing happen to him just a few years ago. His car also got stuck on a railroad track, but he decided his life was more important than his car. After trying for a short while to get his car off the tracks, he got out and left it there. His car was totally destroyed, but he went on with his life. Here we have two almost identical situations, yet with two dramatically different outcomes. When we look at what my friend did to save his life, the steps were easy steps to take. They were steps anyone could take, and the message is loud and clear. Sometimes it's very important to get out and move on. This is true if your car gets stuck on a railroad track, but it's also true when your life gets stuck in circumstances or conditions you can't seem to resolve. Sometimes the only answer is to simply get out and move on. This is so important. If you've been having difficulty in a certain area of your life and it has been repeating itself over and over again, the only answer is to remove yourself from it and move to a place where you can get results. But before you decide to get out and move on, let me also emphasize this important point. Sometimes the problem is not the problem. Sometimes the problem is what's creating the problem. Sometimes the things we see and the things we feel and the things that bother us the most are only symptoms of the problem and are not the problem itself. If we remove ourselves from symptoms, our problems will not go away. It would do us no good, for example, to walk away from a relationship we consider not savable, only to discover later when we are alone or with someone else that we still have the same exact problems. The unfortunate truth about negative circumstances or negative emotions is they keep repeating themselves, even when we are with other people or in different situations. Unless we do something about them, they are not going away. If we are having relationship troubles, whether they are at home or at work, whether they are casual or intimate, we need to find out what's causing them. Then we need to remove ourselves from that. Like all problems, in order to do this, we need to identify what we don't want. We need to understand why we don't like it, and we need to figure out where it comes from. Then we can safely decide what it is we really need to move away from, so that when we do, we don't take our problems with us. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Well, it is simple. Success is never difficult. The hard part is always getting ourselves to take action on what is simple. Once we do, we begin to see how easy it is to really get and keep what we want. But in order for this to happen, we need to be very clear about what we want and very clear about what we don't want. When I was a young person, my grandmother had the very bad habit of saying to herself and others, "I wish I were dead." She said this so often and to so many people that when I told a friend many years later that she had passed away, one of the first comments he made was, "She finally got her wish." Well, I don't think so. Not for a moment. My grandmother wasn't unhappy with living. She was dissatisfied with something else. The truth of the matter, my grandmother felt neglected by other family members. She wasn't getting the attention she wanted or the recognition she felt she deserved. The interesting thing, though, in all those years back then, my grandmother never once said she felt neglected or that she would have liked a little more attention. Instead, all she kept saying was, "I wish I were dead. I wish I were dead." My grandmother spent all of her time talking about what she didn't want, and none of her time talking about what she did want. Can anyone see why she wasn't happy with what she was getting? I should point out that my aunt, who was her daughter, lived right next door with my uncle. My mother, who was also her daughter, lived right up the road with my father. I also spent a good part of my childhood staying over my grandmother's house. Everyone in the family visited with her quite regularly. My point here is my grandmother was actually getting a lot more attention than she realized. So what was the problem? Well, there were two things. First of all, she spent so much of her time and energy focused on what she wasn't getting, that she was unable to appreciate what she was getting. Secondly, she didn't interact with the family in a very constructive way. In other words, what she was doing wasn't getting her what she wanted. The sad truth here was everything my grandmother wanted was already available to her. She was already getting plenty of attention and recognition. If she had wanted more, that was certainly available to her as well. Unfortunately, it was the thing she was doing that made it impossible for her to tap into all the love, all the caring, and all the satisfaction that was already there. This is so often the case for many of us. What we want is usually available to us. The problem is we don't recognize it, and then we set up our world in such a way that we can never get to it. Just as my friend who decided his life was more important than his car, we all need to decide that what we want and what we need is more important than what we are doing that's preventing it. My friend understood that the real problem was not the fact that his car was stuck on a train track. The problem was he was stuck on a train track. As long as he stayed with the car, he was in trouble. The moment he opened the door and got out was the moment his real problems were solved. Sometimes it is so important to give up the things we are doing so that we actually end up getting the things we really want.
We hope you have enjoyed this video presentation from Total Edge Control. We are dedicated to helping people improve the quality of their lives by promoting a philosophy of personal action that combines spiritual awareness, individual responsibility, emotional resourcefulness, and strategic intelligence. We believe that every positive outcome is preceded by a choice, a decision that puts you in charge of the results in your life. Success and satisfaction are directly related to our choices and our decisions. That's why when you make a decision, you literally change your life.
Thanks for joining me today, and remember, John Lennon once said that life is what happens to you while you're making other plans. Make sure that the plans you have for yourself provide you with the life you want and the life you deserve.